Good afternoon, it's Gary Sly in the Legacy of Handmade Objects. It is Monday afternoon, May the 11th, 2026. I've been out zipping around a bit this morning and want to settle down for a few and talk with you some today about a class I'm getting ready to take and some new interests that I'm endeavoring in bobbin lace. So I'll talk about that in just a minute, just to kind of catch you up on what's been happening around here. You may remember the first weekend of May was a busy one. We had a retreat across the street at the church. Chrissy Morgan and Finally a Farm Girl opened her shop. I'm still looking forward to doing a little interview with Chrissy and giving you a tour of her space, but I don't want to steal her thunder, so I'm waiting until she has some time to do that. Also, the wonderful little plant shop around back, Verdevin, had her 1-year anniversary that first weekend. And then I've mentioned a number of times we have a one-woman show here in the front room with work from Margaret Everson. Many of her pieces you might have seen before. And if you look back in my videos, you'll see a couple of interviews with Margaret down through the last couple years. So a lot happening here. I turned 68 years old on Saturday, so I celebrated my birthday. I love exploring new foods, so we went down to a new Ethiopian restaurant in Orlando. Went to an estate auction, didn't buy anything, but had fun looking. And then yesterday we took a little trip over to Sanford. My favorite German restaurant was closed for Mother's Day. But we had some fun looking around and had some nice tea over that way. So I'm happy to be back in the shop. I'm sorry I missed a week, but you know, sometimes you just can't get everything pulled together. While I don't pretend to spend hours and hours scripting and preparing for these videos, it does take just a little bit of work, and sometimes I'm not prepared for that. So I missed last Monday, but I'm back today. What I want to talk about today is bobbin lace. I suspect all of us have one or two of those crafts out there somewhere in the stratosphere that we've looked at and we've said, you know, I'd like to learn that someday. Well, bobbin lace has been one of those for me. What you would have seen before this video started is a photo of an antique bobbin lace cushion that I once had here in the shop. I've sold it. But it really piqued my interest. It was owned by a woman that lived down in Ybor City on the outskirts of Tampa. And it really represented a heritage of probably 100 years worth of bobbin lace in that area by Cuban immigrants to the United States. I also had a couple dear friends up in the Gainesville area who were part of my Embroidery Guild of America chapter who were big into bobbin lace, and it really piqued my interest. Well, I finally decided this year it's time to do something about that. I know most of you have heard of the John C. Campbell Folk School up in North Carolina in the mountains. I have registered and getting excited about going up there and taking an introductory course on bobbin lace. So I began to pull out some of the supplies and things that I've had here. As I mentioned, I've since sold that antique bobbin lace pillow that I had, but I've been told by modern practitioners that would have been pretty hard to deal with anyway. It was stuffed with straw and would have been kind of hard to work with. I'm lucky that a friend of mine, Susan Simone, gave me a modern day bobbin lace pillow. So that's kind of the beginning of this project. She gave me this and a whole bunch of other things that I'll show you here in a moment. Now this is quite nice. It's filled in such a way that your pins will go in nicely, and it's also got this roller on it, which is where you put the pins in to make your designs. I'm not going to try to show you technique today because I want to wait till after I take the class and then I'll show you some of my creations. But this is my bobbin lace pillow that my friend Susan gave to me. My son, who's also a fiber artist, he's a great crocheter and does a bunch of other things, was in Belgium a few years back, and he bought me a book on bobbin lace because he suspected it was something that I was going to get some interest in. And he also bought me a package of square lace bobbins. You know, if you're not exactly sure what bobbin lace is, it's pretty easy to go on and just Google it and watch people moving around. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's involved, but as I say, I'm not going to try to show technique today because I haven't learned technique yet. Along with the pillows, Susan gave me some other bobbins, which are a bit longer, similar in style to those wood ones that I was just looking at. And she gave me a whole bag of bobbins that already have thread on them. You can find beautiful antique bobbins. I mean, this is a whole world of activity that's been going on for centuries. And so if you go down that rabbit hole and you start looking at what's available to you in bobbin lace, you can find quite beautiful antique bobbins and all kinds of other cool stuff. Not there yet. I want to get a few creations under my belt. This book is actually quite nice because it gives you some beginner projects. So I'm not sure what we're going to do in the class, but I have a feeling this will be another fallback for me when I come back. It's called Bobbin Lace by Gillian Dye and Adrian Thunder. And even though my son bought it in Brussels, it's an American publication. So bobbin lace is a textile art created by weaving, twisting, and braiding multiple threads, which are wound on bobbins, these little pieces of wood I showed you, usually held in place by pins on a cushioned pillow, which is the piece that I just showed you there. Now, it makes a lot of sense that this gets its roots in the whole idea of braiding. I've talked a little bit about some of the history of textiles in the past, and when you think about it, one of the earliest probably human inventions was this idea of braiding. Let's say you wanted to tie something in place and you had one strand of something that you had gotten from a palm tree. Well, you would find that that one strand would not hold very long. It wouldn't be that strong. It would wear out very quickly. But if you multiplied the number of strands together, if you twisted them or braided them in some way, then you began to create rope. And of course, rope is way stronger than individual fabric or fibers. And so braiding is a very early human creation. Out of braiding, as always, I think, in human endeavor, comes the desire to make it more beautiful. And so bobbin lace and many other kinds of things that we've talked about in the past, macrame, knitting, crochet, weaving, all those sort of things, get their basis in that early invention of braiding. Bobbin lace was developed in the 16th century. From what I've seen so far, it got its start in Italy, but I have not exhaustively researched the history yet. I'm just kind of giving you some ideas about it. It is called bobbin lace, or sometimes bone lace, because these little bobbins were originally made from pieces of bone. Or sometimes you'll see it called pillow lace because it's made on a pillow. Now, of course, you probably know there are other kinds of lace. There's needle lace, there's lace that is tatted, there's lace that is crocheted. Again, I'm not really trying to get into that too much, but just kind of mention it today. Let me think. Bobbin lace, as far as I've found so far, was first mentioned in a will in the city of Milan in Italy in 1493, where a family there mentioned that they had lace and that they had 12 bobbins. It's not a surprise to me that something like this would have been mentioned in a will as something that would have been precious possessions. This is a theme that I come back to quite a bit as I'm talking about the history of fiber art. Before things were made by machines, even the most simple threads had to be spun and made by hand. And so when you've got all this activity that leads up to the creation of something like lace, which was mostly for decorative purposes, you can imagine an awful lot of human hours went into creating the thread, making the bobbins, all the rest of that sort of stuff, long before you came to the point where you were creating lace. And of course, lace can be quite intricate, quite beautiful, even quite valuable. I know my slow stitching group that meets here on Wednesday nights loves to collect old lace, even if it's tattered, even if it's stained. They like to use parts of it in the embellishments they do in slow stitching and embroidery. But multiply the value of that lace by quite a bit if you're going back 500 or 600 years. And you can imagine that every little snippet of lace would have been quite valuable. We do know that there's quite a lace making tradition in Belgium, Belgian lace, and I'm not familiar with the history of that very much, so I'm not going to talk about that today. But as I go further down this little rabbit hole, you may see me come back and do a whole episode on Belgian lace. I haven't been to Belgium myself, but I know that often it's part of a tour that people take when they want to understand the culture and the legacy that comes to us from Belgium. But there's quite a bit of information about the early materials that were used in Italy. Most of the time, the threads that were used for lace were originally linen. Let's see, I saw something here. Linen, wool, natural fibers like that. Of course, cotton comes along a little bit later. Today, lace can be made from a whole variety of things. Synthetic fibers, also wire. When you think about bendy, twisty wire, you could see that that would be another potential thing to make designs with when you're talking about lace. Another interesting little feature that I saw where they talked about the use of human hair, which would have been spun or used to create thread, and then as a remembrance of someone, human hair might have been formed into a lace pattern and perhaps used as a little something of a decoration on somebody's mourning clothes. Mourning as in M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G, mourning the passing of a loved one. The use of the hair or the tresses from the deceased was a pretty popular image in colonial America and certainly in Western Europe around the same time, 18th, 19th centuries. The lace made from that would have been called point tress, tress being the word for hair or pieces of hair. So there's an awful lot of history all the way back to the 1400s in terms of the use of lace. There's specialized lace, as I mentioned, in Belgium and the whole tradition that goes with that. And I suspect as I begin to dig even deeper and look around, I'll find lace traditions in other parts of the world as well. But if you think about it in terms of the larger category of braiding, you'll understand that braiding is worldwide, and every culture has some tradition of taking smaller strands, braiding them together, either for strength or even possibly for decoration, which is what the use of bobbin lace is all about. So that's just a kind of a little, some of you maybe like history, some of you wish I would shut up and not talk about it so much. But that's just a little beginning of what I'm doing in terms of research. Believe me, when I go to the John C. Campbell Folk School in July, I'm going to be well read and prepared and excited about sitting and listening to my instructor and learning some techniques. And so when I get back, maybe I can do a few sessions on the actual techniques of bobbin lace. I do have a good friend here, Susan, who is currently a bobbin lacer, and maybe I'll have her come in and show you a little bit more advanced work that she does once I know a little bit more what I'm talking about. It's easier to interview somebody if you actually know a little bit about what you're talking about before you start. So thank you for putting up with me again this week. I'm sorry I missed a week. I'm glad to be back in the shop We got a busy summer coming up, and I look forward to catching you up and giving you a tour of the new shop that's here over on the side, and keeping you aware of what's going on here in Leesburg, Florida. So have a great week. As always, this is Gary Sly, and it's the legacy of Handmade Objects.